frequently, or certainly earlier in his career, would continue and get that second one.
And he loses focus, starts doing bad habits on the floor.
Dragic misses the technical, and a technical foul on Rasheed Wallace. He's gone.
Welcome into the first edition of Ball Don't Lie, Penn State Sports Night's first ever basketball podcast. I'm kicking it here today with my man's David Green. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Hunter. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited about this show, and I think it's the best idea ever. I can't wait to just get into it.
Yep, it is podcast week for our show. We had the first NFL podcast posted on Thursday. It's currently Thursday now. This will probably get posted either Thursday night or Friday. Whenever you're listening to it, it'll be up on our YouTube channel. And this is a perfect time to start it because the NBA season is 19 days away. That's close.
Yeah, it's really exciting for me, especially. I'm counting down the days until the season starts. I cannot wait.
Yep. We had Media Day just happened. A lot of drama. We'll get into it momentarily. Currently got training camp. All the teams trying to figure out who to play where, minutes, all that fun stuff. And preseason tipping off this weekend as well. First glimpse, there's a lot of player movement during this free agency. And let's get right into it. So the battle for L.A. already heating up right now. Paul George already running his mouth a bit, saying him and Kawhi are the best duo in the NBA. Obviously, Paul George shockingly got traded to the Clippers. Kawhi Leonard followed suit. Both LA teams, including the Lakers, have championship aspirations. But let's kick it off here. First question of the podcast. Which LA team has the best duo? Not specifically the team, but the best duo between the Lakers and the Clippers. David, let me hear you out.
That's a really tough one, Hunter. It's just really tough. But I will say that Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are the two best two-way players in the NBA. And now they're on the same team. They're both still in their prime. I have to roll with the Clippers duo. I'm not sure how much you'll like that answer, but I gotta go with that two-way. Both of them are amazing two-way players.
It's definitely hard, and everything you said is right. But I'm gonna go with LeBron AD. It could be a biased answer for me. I'm not afraid to admit that. But that being said, I just think LeBron and AD combined, like if you just took them two compared to Paul George and Kawhi Leonard combined, I just think are better players. And also, I'm really curious as a Laker fan, of course, but I think the NBA as well, to see how LeBron and AD are, because AD is a tremendous pick-and-roll player. LeBron is maybe the best passer in all basketball. I know he's not actually a point guard, but he basically is with his IQ and his passing abilities. I just think the fit makes more sense. And if you look at the Clippers roster, I just don't know who's playing power forward between Leonard and George. I think they're both terrific perimeter defenders, but I don't know if any of them can slide down to the floor, at least guard four full-time, especially against a team like the Lakers in Staples Center. AD wants to play power forward. I don't know if either of those guys can check AD on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's a really good point you brought up. The Clippers have just a lot of wing players. I'm not sure what positions that everyone's going to go in, but based on what you just said, they're going to have to ask a lot of Montrezl Harrell on the defensive end, who is a good defender, but like we said, we're comparing him to Anthony Davis, who he's going to have to guard when they face the Lakers. So that's going to be a tough one with the Clippers as far as like who goes where.
Yeah, and the NBA did us a favor because the Lakers and Clippers are going to be playing each other in their first games. That's going to be a lot of fun. And sticking to the duo kind of topic we're talking about right now, there's a lot of nice up-and-coming duos, new pairings this offseason, if you will, both from guys coming back from injury, free agency, trades. So I want to ask you, David, what are some other tandems in the league that could potentially stack up with these two?
Yeah, so we're officially in the era of super duos now. You got Russell Westbrook and Harden over in Houston. That could go one of two ways. They're both amazing players. Both have won an MVP. They've both led the league in assists. And scoring. So you got the Rockets duo over there. Kevin Durant is not healthy yet, so the Kawhi-Kevin Durant duo we're going to have to wait on. But I think that Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid this year are going to surprise a lot of people. I think Simmons improved a lot. I heard Embiid lost 25 pounds this summer, and they're hungry, and I think that the Sixers think that they're the best team in the East. So I think they're going to come with everything they got this year.
Yeah, we will get into Sixer talk in a while. Of course, I had to put down the rundown. Our annual Sixer fan, David Green, of course, can give us some awesome insight there. I definitely want to talk about, and I'm really curious to see the reunion of James Harden and Russell Westbrook, because when they were in OKC, it was a completely different scenario. Kevin Durant was the guy. Russell Westbrook wasn't the playmaker and ball-dominant player that he is today, and James Harden was a six-man. He wasn't even starting on this team. Those two guys have gone a lot better, have gone through a lot of different teams and seasons since then. So they're two mature guys. I'm curious to see who's going to be fighting and who's going to be bringing the ball up half court because these two guys are have the two highest usage rates in NBA history. They are ball-dominant players. They score a lot of points. They get a lot of assists as well. And again, it's Harden ball, Russell Westbrook dribbling out the clock. So I'm curious to see who gives, I don't know, will we see Harden play more off the ball as more of a traditional shooting guard, more of a catch-and-shoot guy? Or is Russell Westbrook, are we going to see him more off the ball, cutting, and maybe potentially even improving his catch-and-shoot ability?
Yeah, I'm super curious about how the Rockets are going to look with that. I honestly think, and based on what I've seen, some of these new moves that James Harden is inventing as we speak,
yeah,
I think Harden is going to score as much as he scored last year, or at least very close. I think Russ is going to take a very slight step back as far as the just having the ball in his hands every single play. So it's up to Russell Westbrook to become more of an off-the-ball player. I think he can do it. I think he has the potential to do it. But I think Harden is still going to be the guy in Houston on offense, of course.
Yeah, I think at this point, I think you and me both agree, James Harden's definitely the better player of the two. He's definitely the better scorer for sure. I think we will see Harden play a little bit more off the ball, but I think he has to make that commitment because it was a little different with Chris Paul. Russell Westbrook is, at this point in his career, a much better player than Chris Paul. And Harden, when you watch him play sometimes, when he doesn't have the ball in his hands, he looks disinterested. He doesn't run up the court as hard. He's not playing defense, and he's capable of doing both of these things, cutting off the ball. He's a smart player, so it definitely frustrates me as an NBA fan seeing a guy just basically give up when he's not playing Harden ball. But at the same time, I think Westbrook, we did see in OKC, he delegated to Paul George a lot last year, and they actually were pretty good. Bearing they had a couple injuries, Paul George was not fully healthy at the end of the season. I think that's why they struggled in the playoffs. But we did see Paul George had a career year, too. I mean, that was by far the best year of his career. Let's see. I'm curious to see if Russell Westbrook can have that same effect with James Harden in Houston. And if they do, I mean, this is a championship team.
Yeah, right now my thought process with those two is that as far as longevity, the way Harden plays, and he is a couple years younger, I think he's going to last a lot longer, a lot more years in this league than Russell Westbrook as a top player. I think Russell Westbrook is still a top player, and he will be for a couple more years, but James Harden has plenty of years ahead of him with the way he plays, of being super productive for at least another 5 years.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Russell Westbrook, and of course Derrick Rose, unfortunately, he had the injuries. But Russell Westbrook, it was basically the first really, really athletic point guard. He was basically really more of like a wing player, but is 6'5" and just has a 40-inch vertical, jumps out the gym. So it's curious to see how much longer can he play that game. And Russell Westbrook plays so hard. And that's one thing you love about him is he never takes a play off. But at the same time, you kind of wonder how many more years can he play at that high level? And if so, will he be able to adjust his game at all?
Yeah, and let's not forget, Westbrook has also been very banged up in the past.
Yeah.
And you don't always hear about it because he plays through a lot of the pain. He's had shoulder surgeries. I think he's had knee surgeries. James Harden is a little younger and has not had all of that. So, I don't know. This year specifically, I think the Rockets could do something maybe next year too. But as far as Russell Westbrook being like a top 5 or 10 player in this league, I don't think it's going to last very much longer.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I think we are starting to see a bit of a decline. I think Westbrook's still probably 90% of the athlete he was when he entered the league.
Yeah.
He's also a little bigger, so I think he's still more athletic than basically any other player. But I think the gap has shortened a bit. Another duo, though, I'm really excited to see that we unfortunately got robbed of last year is Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis with the Mavericks. It's just the fit makes so much sense if both players, if it goes as best case scenario, Porzingis is a 7'3" unicorn. He can shoot the ball, he blocks the rim, runs the floor really hard. He's no longer in a a toxic situation with the Knicks. He's actually in like a fairly stable organization, the Dallas Mavericks. And we saw, baby goat Luka Doncic just light up the league, take it by storm last year, was the rookie of the year. And I think he has a lot of room to grow as well in his game. I'm very curious to see how good this duo could potentially be.
Yeah, I totally agree. I didn't want to get too ahead of myself earlier when we talked about some of the best duos in the league. I think that those two, Porzingis and Doncic, will get there because, like you said, it makes perfect sense, and they complement each other great. Luka is like 6'7". Let's not forget that.
He's big.
Like, they are big. They can both shoot, and the way they play this game is what wins in this league nowadays. So I think that the Mavericks are going to make major noise, especially with all the other pieces they have. So the confidence of Doncic seems unshakable.
Yeah.
He won an MVP in the EuroLeague as like an 18-year-old, and then Porzingis is hungry to come back, I think, because he was stuck on the Knicks, and then he had an injury. So I think Porzingis is looking to ball out this year.
Yeah, and I remember I'm sure this guy hasn't played basketball since he was on the Knicks, and that was quite some time ago. He missed all of last season. But the Mavericks still gave him a 5-year max extension. We'll see hopefully for them that he's healthy and that all that money is earned, not just, given. And at the same time, this duo could be so good. It could be one of the best for the next 10, 15 years. And let's talk about another duo that could be good for that long of a time, which is the Philadelphia 76ers and their two young studs. Ben Simmons, he's ready to shoot a shot, not with a Kardashian, not with an R&B singer, but from outside the paint. He said during media day that he'll take open threes if presented to him. And don't worry, Ben, you're going to get a lot of those open shots. They will be there for you. So I think Ben Simmons, if he can develop a knockdown jumper, I think he could be one of the best players in the NBA, like top 10 MVP caliber player, because he has everything else otherwise in his disposal. So let me ask you, David, our 76er expert right here. Do you believe Simmons? Do you think that he actually did add jumper this offseason?
So at first, when I see all these videos of them in the gym when he's shooting wide open jump shots, because let's be honest, everyone can make wide open jump shots in the gym
true.
when no one's there. But I think he is really working on it. I think he's sick and tired of everyone saying he can't shoot. I was very disappointed when 2 years ago he couldn't shoot. Everyone was saying he couldn't shoot. He refused to take a shot. And then he came in the following year, meaning last year, and made zero improvements on his jump shot.
Yeah.
Didn't make any difference at all. So I'm expecting a big jump from that, like this summer he made starting this season. So I expect Ben Simmons to take a lot more jump shots and make them. And Embiid's looking really good right now. He said he's not going to talk a bunch of trash anymore. I think he's going to be
saying off Twitter.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a little more focused and focus a little more on winning. And I think that the defense that this team will bring is unbelievable. If you look at some of the analytics, Ben Simmons did the best job on a lot of the other team's best players in the playoffs last year playing defense.
Yeah, I definitely will say that, Ben Simmons, I thought he had an amazing rookie year. And not that, he was an all-star second year. It wasn't like he had a bad year, but he didn't really take a jump. I didn't think he got any better from rookie the second year. And that was a little bit disappointing to see because he is so talented. But as you said, if he can really, improve his game, it's the jump shot. If the jump shot is there, even if he can become like a good free throw shooter, because he can get to the line a ton, that will help this team out so much because him and Embiid, it's not the greatest basketball fit, but it's two talented guys. I thought it was smart for the Sixers to re-sign Simmons, give him the max deal. It's very rare you get a talent like that on your team, especially at his age, who has a lot of room to grow. And yeah, let's talk about the Sixers in general, though, because if Simmons can take that next step, I just want to know, what do you think the ceiling is on this team?
This team has the potential to win the East this year and get to the NBA Finals. The only team, in my opinion, that's actually really standing in their way is the Milwaukee Bucks. Yeah. I think the Celtics took a little step back. Al Horford left the Celtics and came to the Sixers. That's going to be huge for the Sixers defensively. And then the Celtics replaced him with Enes Kanter. So I don't think the Celtics or the Pacers, for that matter, are going to be on that level. I think it's, as Stephen A. Smith would say, a collision course between the Bucks and the Sixers to win the East this year. Obviously, the Raptors don't have Kawhi Leonard anymore. I don't think they're going to do much without him. What do you think?
I have to agree. I think there's a lot of competitive teams in the East, but I think if it's not Milwaukee or Philly, I don't know who else it's going to be. Milwaukee basically stood pat. I mean, they got Wesley Matthews. They lost Malcolm Brogdon, which I do think is a big loss, but not one they can't recover from. I think the Sixers got better. I'm very curious to see how this lineup works because I have a couple questions with the Sixers. A, maturity. Like, is this team more mature than they were a season ago? And now the leaders are really Ben Simmons and Embiid because Jimmy Butler is not there anymore. Not only is Jimmy Butler going to get on his teammates and keep them in check, but Jimmy Butler was the closer for this team. He was the one handling the ball in the fourth quarter. He had the cojones to always take the big shot, and he usually made it a lot of times too. Guard the team's best offensive threat during crunch time. So that's a big loss. You can't deny that if you're a Sixer fan. I think Embiid even said that they're going to miss Jimmy Butler, so that's kind of funny. But I think this is Ben Simmons' time in terms of he's now the guy dribbling the ball in the fourth quarter because I don't think, as much as I love Tobias Harris, and he'll, I think, score a lot more points for them this year and be a huge part for that team, my Long Island guy, but I think that, I think this is Ben Simmons' time. I really want to see Embiid in better shape. I know the injuries, it's unfortunate, but I think I saw something, I forgot who said it. It may have been on First Take. Don't quite remember. They said Embiid has more stomach problems than like a 2-year-old or like an infant. I thought that was really funny. But, Embiid's got to be in better shape. His conditioning has not been there. His mind, I agree with the trash talking. He backs up the trash talking. He's an amazing player. Don't get me wrong. And he plays hard on both sides of the ball. But at the same time, you don't want that to cloud your overall play. I love the addition of Josh Richardson. That was a great addition for both sides of the ball. And if you're going to get a replacement for Jimmy Butler, that was as good, if not better, than what they could have originally thought on the market. Al Horford, I mean, they got the Joel Embiid stopper on their team now, so I guess that's good. I guess no one else is going to be able to guard him in the East. But I just wonder how the Al Horford fit is along Embiid because that's a really big lineup and not a lot of great shooters.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. Where do I start? Man. So
I said a lot. That's my bad.
It's all right. But a friend of mine who played with the Sixers in the new 2K20 said there's absolutely no spacing on the court whatsoever with Horford and Embiid there. If Ben Simmons can come in with a jump shot, that will change everything.
It would. It really would.
So getting back to what you said about Jimmy Butler, I found myself last year in the playoffs so many times saying, well, it's clear that Jimmy Butler is the grown-up and the adult on this team. And he's the one who, like you said, took all the big shots. And he guarded the tough people to guard last year in the playoffs. He's a playoff player. So what you said about Josh Richardson, I couldn't agree more. I've watched him a lot in Miami. He is a young, hungry player who plays defense, and he can shoot it with plenty of upside. You mentioned Al Horford, the Embiid stopper. I hate to say that, but Embiid had a very hard time against Al Horford, and now they're teammates. I think Horford's a great locker room presence.
That's true. That's very true.
And going back to even the duo, I think Embiid and Simmons are dogs. Like, they will not back down from anybody, and they will not be intimidated, and they will not be denied. So, looking at the bench, I think a major piece that the Sixers have is Zaire Smith, who's returning. He looks very good. He's a 6'4", 200-pound guard who can shoot the ball. He's super athletic, and I'm sure he's super hungry to play too. He got to play a couple games last year. It's just another trend with the Sixers. Every time they have a rookie, he misses his whole first year or two. But
that's true.
Yeah, it's if you look at it, it's happened a lot. So I think Zaire Smith's going to be a big depth piece for them. Tobias Harris, I expect him to take a jump and score more this year. And I've heard him say so many times lately that he wants to become the best defensive player he can and the best defensive player on the team. So if we have Tobias Harris with his size playing solid defense, Ben Simmons has been playing great defense, Embiid is regularly a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, Al Horford was able to stop Embiid, I think this team defensively is going to be a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, it's a big, athletic, defensive-minded starting five with offensive prowess as well. One player that I think the Sixers actually are going to miss, though, is J.J. Redick, just because of how good of a shooter, how reliable he is. He's never not been in the playoffs in his career. He's right now one of the 5 members of Duke South. And if you're wondering who Duke South is, that is the New Orleans Pelicans, because they have a lot of former Dukies on the team, one of them being Zion Williamson. There's been videos surfacing of him just abusing the rims, catching lobs during practice, and, He's probably the most hyped up rookie, I think, since LeBron, in my opinion, just in terms of the media attention. I think he's really good, of course. But let me ask you, David, you keep it real about Zion. You're not a Zion truther per se. I want to ask you, how do you think his season's going to play out this year?
Yeah, that's tough to think about because he has all the potential in the world, obviously. He lit the college basketball world on fire last year as a freshman. We've never really seen anything like him. But with all that being said, the man weighs 285 pounds. He comes down on those ankles and knees a lot. So I'm a little concerned about his long-term health with the way he plays because he plays with so much passion. He gives it everything he has.
Yeah, he does.
Which you want, obviously. So I think Zion this year will be in the realm of like 15 points, maybe 10 rebounds a game. I think he'll get some blocked shots, also some steals. I think he's ferocious on defense. So I expect that type of rookie year out of him. I'm not sure he's going to win Rookie of the Year. He definitely could, but the Pelicans are super interesting this year. I'll be watching them closely because a friend of mine earlier, we named 8 teams in the West that we think are going to name the playoffs, and we forgot to mention the Pelicans. So I think the Pelicans have so much potential. They got Brandon Ingram from the Lakers. They got Lonzo Ball from the Lakers. What do you think about the Pelicans?
Yeah, I am very curious to see because we've never seen like a physical specimen like Zion Williamson. It's like J.J. Watt playing basketball, basically. Like, can his body, it for the most part withstood a college basketball season that went, Duke went to the Elite Eight, so that's an extended regular season plus the ACC tourney for Duke. So, and he missed a couple games, but he came back and looked really good. So, and his injury was not his fault. I mean, his foot blew through a shoe.
He's got to wear some tighter shoes.
I guess.
Some bigger shoes. Get some LeBron.
Yeah, put some Timbs on his feet. Honestly, that may be the solution to problems. So I am very curious to see if he can withstand an entire 82-game season, if his body holds up, if his conditioning is on point on an NBA level.
Hunter, I think one important factor with Zion, and we saw it a lot at Duke, it's not like he can't shoot.
No,
this guy can
yeah.
shoot the ball. Like, if you leave him open, he's going to make the shot.
Yeah, he's a solid spot-up shooter. We saw in the Summer League he was trying to shoot off the dribble. I don't know if he's trying to add that to his arsenal. He probably should. It's not there yet. He's not great off the dribble. He's an inconsistent free throw shooter. Not garbage, but he's inconsistent. And, yeah, I mean, I kind of do wonder how good the Pelicans can be. They made a lot of moves this offseason. They got a lot of capital back for Anthony Davis, of course. Basically, a lot of Laker players, a lot of Laker draft picks. They re-signed, as I said, or not re-signed, they signed J.J. Redick. They also signed Derek Favors, 2 veterans that are definitely going to make a big impact on this team. Drew Holiday's still there. They drafted also Jackson Hayes and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, 2 other first-round picks. They both looked really good in the Summer League. I'll be curious to see how much of an impact those 2 individuals will have. So, yeah, I kind of wonder, will this team, will they actually make the playoffs, or will they just be kind of more of a young, fun team to watch?
I have to go more with the second thing you just said. I think it's possible that they can make a playoff appearance, but they're going to be really fun to watch. You mentioned J.J. Redick. The way Lonzo Ball can pass the ball is amazing. He truly has a court vision like we've never seen. So I also think Lonzo Ball, he's in a totally different mindset right now. He seems to have become his own man a lot more. I think Brandon Ingram has a lot to prove, and he knows it. So I think those 2 will be super hungry this year. I'm excited to see a new Lonzo Ball, who, by the way, his new jump shot that he fixed again, it does look very good.
Yeah.
And, Ingram has all this potential. J.J. Redick is huge for that team. You got to have a shooter like that, and also the leadership. So the Pelicans could make the playoffs this year. They could just miss it, but I think they're going to be, without a doubt, super fun to watch.
Yeah, the wide range of outcomes for the Pelicans is very intriguing. I think for this team, the keys are going to be, if they want to make the playoffs, Zion Williamson has to be like that guy out of the gate. He has to, and I think you have to also see growth and just being able to stay on the floor in terms of health, and sometimes that's unavoidable with Brandon Ingram and Lonzo Ball. Because if those 2 guys can really take a leap forward this year, I do think this team is capable of making the playoffs because I think they're very good defensively. There's not a lot of great outside shooting on that team, though, and obviously floor spacing is very important in today's NBA. But there's a lot of guys that can dribble, pass, and shoot. A lot of young talent. I'm really excited to see this team play out. And another guy who I'm also really excited for is Derrick Rose. As you may or may not know, he is now on the Detroit Pistons. He's been moving around a lot in his NBA career, different cities. But him and Isaiah Thomas, two Chicago natives, of course. And we all know Isaiah Thomas, the greatest Piston to ever put on that uniform. You know, he kind of dapped up Derrick Rose in a video that kind of went viral. Two very well-respected NBA players, of course, Isaiah being a former one. And yeah, you know, Derrick Rose had a really good year last year for the Timberwolves. And I think he's going to get even more of an opportunity with the Pistons this year. Detroit has not really had a point guard since, like, Chauncey Billups, which is kind of scary when you think about it. So I kind of want to ask you, you know, can Derrick Rose be that answer? Because I don't think it's Reggie Jackson, a.k.a. Bobby Shmurda.
So listen, when I saw Derrick Rose have that 50-point game last year, I was truly inspired. Derrick Rose, I would say he's still that dude. No one would still be that dude after the amount of knee injuries he's had with the severity of them over that amount of time. But this guy is, 30 years old?
Probably about that, yeah.
Yeah, he's not that old. He is super experienced. He has played against and with the best of them. So I'm expecting the Pistons to make the playoffs in the East this year, since the East is wide open. Andre Drummond I really like. Blake Griffin is very talented, and all those guys are in their prime, are coming into their prime. So I think the Pistons can make the playoffs, and I think Derrick Rose is a perfect point guard for that team.
Yeah, I really like Derrick Rose for this team particularly, whether he starts or he's just a really good six-man. But yeah, I kind of want to ask you, because you talked about playoffs with this team. Are the Pistons, flying under the radar right now? Could they even grab, a top 5 or 6 seed in the East potentially?
I don't think it's out of the question that they can get to the 5 or 6 seed. I don't think they're going to win the East, obviously. But,
yeah.
But this team is not to be taken lightly. They have a lot of talent on that team, and I think they have a lot of focused players that want to win.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think they can get to the 5 seed. I don't see how many other teams, there's those middle of the pack teams, there's the Miami Heat. I think the Pacers might be above them. Brooklyn is coming once Kevin Durant comes back. So there's a lot of teams, even Orlando, they made the playoffs.
Yeah.
I think this team could definitely make some noise, and they're definitely under the radar. No one's talking about the Pistons.
Yeah, I mean, the Pistons never get talked about. It's a really weird team. But yeah, I think it's interesting with them because there's a lot of big storylines with this Pistons team. For one, Andre Drummond is in a contract year, so you kind of wonder, A, what's his market look like? I don't think that they're looking to re-sign him before the season starts, so I think he's going to be hitting the market as a free agent. Blake Griffin had a revival season. He was third-team All-NBA. He actually was very, very good. And when he was healthy, and this team had inconsistency problems last year, they were a 4, 5, 6 seed in the East, and they were a really good team when Blake Griffin was actually on the court producing. They ended up getting swept by the Bucks, mainly because Blake Griffin didn't play, although I think they probably would have gotten handled either way. It could have been a sweep.
Yeah.
But Blake Griffin definitely, not being on the court, did not help their chances at all. So I am very curious to see, can the Pistons, get it together? I think you have to see a bigger season from a guy like a Luke Kennard. Can Sekou Doumbouya, who they just drafted, can he give you anything? Can Bruce Brown take that next step? Kyrie Thomas. There's just a couple of guys on this team that I do think, if they want to be successful, have to step up. Because as good as Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond are, they can't do everything.
Yeah, one more thing before we move on. Blake Griffin, you can say what you want about him. The Clippers were not able to win a championship with him, but Blake Griffin is the real deal. He's super talented. He's still young. He's 6'10". He's totally athletic, and he can pretty much do everything. I do think he shoots a little too many threes. That's not necessarily his game, but Blake Griffin is very good, and I think he can make an all-star team again. I
think Blake Griffin's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, we would have to sit down and look at the numbers, but that's not out of the question. Blake Griffin is for real.
Yeah, I mean, what's also mentioned, because I'm a Blake Griffin, I don't know, I want to say truther, but I feel like I always defend him all the time because, this dude right out the gate was an all-star his rookie year. He, won the dunk contest, which may have been, thrown to him. That's a whole nother conspiracy theory for another time. But Blake Griffin, one of the most athletic players we've seen, but once he kind of lost that athleticism, he he expanded his game. He could not shoot the ball a lick when he first came in the league. He was like under a 50% free throw shooter. Now he shoots in the high 70s. He did not have a three-point shot. Now he has one. He may take a little too many. He can bring the ball up end to end easily. He has amazing handles. I think he's not a great defender, but a very plausible one. I think with Andre Drummond, it's a very good compliment. It's really interesting to see because I think that Blake Griffin is in no man's land right now with the Pistons. He doesn't get talked about as much as he did when he was with the LA Clippers, but Blake Griffin's a really, really good player that probably doesn't get the credit he deserves.
Yeah, Blake Griffin will stuff the stat sheet, and I just think the duo of him and Drummond, it doesn't get talked about enough. They're the perfect power forward center combination, and I think they have both worked on their game a lot, like you said.
Yeah, no, I mean, Andre Drummond, a really good player in his own right as well. And a player who's also really good in his own right is Giannis Antetokounmpo. And, Kyle Korver comes to the NBA, comes to the Bucks this season. He's a guy who I think any playoff team would want because you just know how much of a sniper he is from beyond the arc. The sharpshooter is apparently giving Giannis some shooting tips. I guess they're doing some shooting drills after practice and stuff. We've been seeing videos of it. Kyle Korver is trying to break the NBA because I'm just kind of wondering, if Giannis had Kyle Korver's shooting ability, how dominant would he be? He's already insanely dominant, but just imagine that.
Hunter, that is terrifying. and like you said, I don't know where to start here either. So with Kyle Korver, he's one of the most professional NBA players I've ever seen, one of the greatest shooters of all time, of course. And I think he definitely takes those young guys under his wing and shows them, how to be a professional. But not only that, I definitely think, he's working with Giannis on shooting. Now that they've had this whole summer to work on it, I think Giannis is going to make even another improvement. Because if we look back on it, Giannis has improved every single year.
Yes.
And even last year, they were leaving him open. He made a couple threes.
He's not a bad shooter. He's not locked. He's not a guy that you're going to take your chance with him and defend the rim because he's the most dominant paint scorer and probably he's one of the most dominant defensive players in the paint as well in the NBA. So you have to pick your poison. But he's not like a trash shooter. He makes probably around 70 to 75% of his free throws. I don't know the number off the top of my head. I'm sorry. But
it's okay.
He's a respectable free throw shooter. He gets there a ton. He, I think is very versatile. And I think the thing that I don't know if it gets overlooked or not, but when I see Giannis works his tail off. This dude, he wants him more than everything else. He comes from the school of Kobe in that sense that he's in the gym nonstop looking to get better at basketball.
Yeah, I love talking about that because I remember the little story Giannis told when he worked out with Kobe. I think it was a little over a year ago. He got there to the gym before Kobe did, which is crazy, right?
Yeah,
there.
I know. He beat someone to it.
And he told Kobe, he's like, Kobe, I'm not here to mess around. Let's do this. I'm trying to get better. He really wants to get better. He has improved every single year. And like you said, this guy, he's 6'11", probably 7 feet, with the longest wingspan I might have ever seen.
Yeah.
He can handle the ball like a guard, and then he just easily dunks over centers.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like Giannis, and I was fully riding Giannis for MVP last year, 100%.
Yeah, I think it is to be said, though, Giannis...
Defense as well.
Giannis is probably one of the few NBA players, maybe really the only one that can do it at a super successful level, that can play offense and defense 1 through 5. He can literally guard any player, and he can play any position on the offensive end.
I totally agree with that. I don't know if there's another player in the NBA like that. Maybe if LeBron was younger and more willing to play defense really hard the whole entire game, but you got Giannis. And the only other guy I would compare him to in that sense who can do everything is Ben Simmons, but we talked about earlier, there's literally no jump shot yet. We're yet to see that, so Giannis is a unicorn in his own right.
Yeah, Giannis is definitely one of the most unique players we've ever seen, and if he improves his jumper, that's going to be, wow.
Especially with Kyle Korver now having an entire summer with him working on it, I think the Bucks are going to be... they're probably the favorites to win the East, so the Sixers have their work cut out for them if they want to defeat the Bucks.
Yeah, I'm sure Giannis getting that adversity of, because we saw him walk out of the press interview when they lost. They blew the 2-0 lead to the Raptors, and Giannis didn't really play that well in that series. It was kind of, shocking to see because he dominated the entire season. I think now he has kind of a chip on his shoulder. He's looking now okay, I know what it's like to lose in the playoffs now, being so close to winning an NBA, getting to the NBA Finals, and he's a guy that he's going to be working, he's going to be picking up his team. Yeah, I'm curious to see because I think this Bucks roster compared to the Sixers, I think Sixers have more talent, but I think the roster of Milwaukee is constructed better because they just surrounded Giannis with a bunch of two-way players and a bunch of catch-and-shoot players, and offense runs through him. He drives to the paint. He's a good enough passer to find open shooters, and they just knock it down.
Yeah, of course. Like you mentioned earlier, the Sixers are really good on paper. Brett Brown, he's a good coach, but I think Coach Budenholzer is a great coach.
Yeah,
and
he is.
Let's not forget, he took the Hawks to the 1 seed in 2015. He won Coach of the Year. Coach Budenholzer, he develops players and makes them into great players, I think. So I think, not that Giannis, I'm worried about him not having his head on straight, but I'm super confident with the coach they have and the culture that they've created. So the Bucks, the sky is the limit for the Bucks.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because Giannis was actually very upset when they got rid of Jason Kidd, but I don't think he's feeling as bad about it right now.
That's his first coach, I understand.
Yeah, and also, I agree. I mean, but Budenholzer's from the school of Popovich, He was a former assistant for the San Antonio Spurs, and he did an amazing job with the Hawks. They won 67 games with a roster of Kyle Korver, Jeff Teague, Damari Carroll, Al Horford, and Paul Millsap as your starting lineup. So, and their whole lineup won NBA Player of the Month, which is kind of cool. That just shows you that the Hawks were just really well coached, and they played really well as a team. And speaking of teams, I kind of had a little fun last segment here for us, called it MyGM, Fixing an NBA Franchise. Figured this would be a lot of fun to talk about. So I want to ask you, David, which team would you feel confident or want to take over for, and what would you do to make that team better? So I want to do a non-playoff team, a team that's in a very weird situation, whether it's they're just flat out garbage or just their cap situation sucks. Is there any teams that come to mind that you're hey, if I was a GM, this is what I would do to help bring this team back to relevancy?
Yeah, that's tough. I suppose the team that comes to my mind, I think the Indiana Pacers are a very good team, and they were rolling when they had Oladipo before he got hurt. They play very well. They play very hard, but I feel like they're 1 or 2 free agency moves away from being a top team in the East. Let's not forget when they played the Cavs with LeBron, they were one questionable goaltending call away in Game 7 from beating LeBron and the Cavs. So, this Pacer team is for real, and Miles Turner is for real.
Yeah, I was actually just about to say, this is a big year. I think Miles Turner is I think his contract's up, so but he'll be a restricted free agent. He's a really, really talented player, and he played with Team USA, so I think he's going to get a lot better with that experience. They did just get Malcolm Brogdon, which is, I think, a really interesting fit.
Great
with
addition.
Victor Oladipo, 2 guys that can play either guard spot, amazing defenders, super efficient as well, and I think Victor Oladipo, when he gets back, I'm sure he'll be an all-star yet again. I believe in just him as a guy. One team that I kind of thought of, which was interesting, was the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Okay.
Because I looked at their cap situation before the show. They're paying Andrew Wiggins $27 million this year.
Oh, my goodness.
Jeff Teague's on the books for 19. Gorgie Jang doesn't even start, and they're paying him $16 million. Robert Covington's at 11, which I think's respectable. Karl-Anthony Towns is also at 27. I'd be curious to see what moves this team would make. They lost Derrick Rose and Tyus Jones this offseason, which I think was that hurt losing both of them. Because Jeff Teague isn't always healthy. Jeff Teague, again, if they can somehow I would try getting rid of those contracts. I'd keep Towns because Towns is a really good player in my opinion. You don't trade a talent like that when you have him signed long term. But you gotta surround them because eventually Karl-Anthony Towns is gonna want out. I think everyone's kind of trying to figure out who's the next big name guy to get traded, like an Anthony Davis this summer or even Paul George, Westbrook. I think Towns could be that guy. I'm sure he doesn't love playing in Minnesota. Gets really cold.
Yeah.
He's from New Jersey, so I guess he can maybe be okay with it. But the Timberwolves, I really like having Saunders there as the head coach. They signed they fixed up their front office a bit. I'm a fan of the Jared Culver pick. I thought that was a pretty nice get for Minnesota. I think they really wanted Darius Garland, but he went the pick right before that. So I think settling for Culver is really good. I think he was the next ranked player on my board. But yeah, I'd probably do whatever I can to get anything for Andrew Wiggins. I do not want that contract. I think Andrew Wiggins is extremely overrated. He's inefficient. He was good his first couple of years, but then once he got the money, he just stopped caring, didn't really have any sort of motivation anymore. I try to get up the books off Gorgie Jang and Jeff Teague. Just fix this cap situation and then just acquire as many picks as I can or make a big move. I was surprised that they weren't bidders for like a Russell Westbrook, for example. I thought adding him or even Chris Paul when he was available, I thought trying to get one of those two guys would have really helped Karl-Anthony Towns a ton. And at the end of the day, you got to sell tickets. Even if you're not competing for a championship, you got to sell tickets. Timberwolves have had problems with that in the past. And as a small market team, if your team's playing hard every night, you got competitors like Chris Paul and Russell Westbrook would really help. Fans will come and support the team.
Yeah, I agree with you about Wiggins. I do think he's overrated. He has so much to... What is this, year 6 he's going into?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's more than about time for Wiggins to step up. He averages like 20 points a game.
Not even anymore.
Yeah, like, we need more from you, Andrew Wiggins. With the Timberwolves and that young core, I really like them. I think they're super talented. But after that whole Jimmy Butler fiasco happened in Minnesota, I'm not saying Jimmy Butler's 100% right about everything he said about them, but I don't think these guys are that focused on winning. Like you said, Andrew Wiggins, he got the huge contract. Karl-Anthony Towns got the huge contract. These guys got rewarded so much money before they won anything, and I think it's showing. So, like, I do think it would have been a very good idea for them to get maybe a Chris Paul or Westbrook over the offseason, like you said. But, yeah, the cap situation is a major issue there. They're going to have to they're going to have to buy somebody out or make a trade or something because it doesn't help you being one of those borderline maybe we'll make the playoff teams. You're either winning or you're tanking and getting a really good draft pick, but they're right in the middle.
They're right in the middle.
They're not getting anywhere
and
with that.
That's exactly why I'd want to pick them because I like challenge. I'm a bit of a gunslinger when it comes to that. Yeah, because I look at this team and I kind of also wonder, like, man, like they would. I think their only solution right now, if they can't get rid of those bad contracts, would have to be to trade Karl-Anthony Towns, which is a bullet they don't want to bite, and I don't blame them because, he was the number one pick. Yeah, I think he's lived up to the hype. I mean, he did not show up in that one playoff series. He got owned by Clint Capella when they played against the Rockets. But, like, this dude averages 25 and 12 every year. Like, he's a really, really good player. You can't say you missed on that, like, as a number one pick.
If I had to choose between Andrew Wiggins and Karl-Anthony Towns, I think 9 times out of 10 I would trade away Andrew Wiggins and start over in that aspect. Karl-Anthony Towns, I feel like, is like there's not a lot of Karl-Anthony Towns out there in the world.
No.
He's a big man who can shoot it, and he can pretty much do everything for his position. Yeah, he did get owned by Capella in that one series, but James Harden has a lot to do with that and just the way the Rockets play. But if I'm choosing between Towns and Wiggins, send Wiggins elsewhere. Let's start over.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I have to. I agree with you. No debate here. I do think Karl-Anthony Towns is the real deal. I think, it's going to hurt his career. I think he can make All-Star games. He made the All-Star game this past season. But at the same time, like, it's like Kevin Love and Kevin Garnett. Like, these great big men who get stuck in Minnesota, they put up great numbers, and then they request a trade because they want to win. It worked out pretty well for the first two Kevins that I mentioned. Let's see if the third K and Carl can, get the same thing. I think he's not going to spend the rest of his career in Minnesota. I think a trade will happen, maybe not this next year, but definitely in the coming years because we are seeing players force their way out of teams. We're seeing players force their way out now earlier in their contracts rather than just a year or 2 years left. So the Timberwolves are in a really tough spot right now, and that's why I would pick them. And, just kind of wrap up this podcast here. I just want to thank everybody who's listening. Me and David have been looking forward to this for a while.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
I've been waiting all summer for this. Basketball is finally upon us.
Yeah, we got this Ball Don't Lie podcast going on. We're going to be, pumping out content as the weeks progress. And again, we're starting a podcast on Penn State Sports Night here. It's a new revelation this year. We're going to have a lot of different sports being covered, a lot of different members of our club, giving their opinions, whether it's football, basketball, maybe even some wackier sports. And yeah, basketball is right around the corner. So, be sure to keep an eye out for us every week or so as we're going to be putting out the best content we can as the season progresses. Thank you for watching, and hopefully you'll tune in again.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for watching our latest edition of Penn State Sports Night. If you're a fan of our content, please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more clips. Also follow us on Twitter at PSSNTV and on Instagram at PSU Sports Night to keep up with the action. For all my colleagues, we are Penn State Sports Night.